All right. It is Saturday, June 26, 2021, gentlemen, and this is the Southeastern Conference Camp Meeting edition of the Pastors Roundtable. Good afternoon and happy Sabbath.
Happy Sabbath.
Good afternoon. Happy Sabbath. Wow, I tell you, it is here. Listen, today we are making history.
That's right. We are finally.
Well, listen, before we say that, Pastor Paul, I want to welcome you all to my city.
Oh, wow. Hey, that's right. We are here in Orlando, Florida. We want to do things, though. We want to welcome our regular Pastors Roundtable audience who's been with us since, March of last year.
Yes,
we're excited to have you with us again on this Sabbath. But we've got a brand new audience with us today, and that is the Southeastern Conference Camp Meeting crowd. This is the Southeastern Conference Camp Meeting edition. It is part of our Southeastern Conference Camp Meeting program for this weekend, June 26th, and we are excited to have each and every one of you with us. This is what we want you to do right quick. Wherever you're watching from, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube, we're actually doing this. We want you to type in the chat where you are watching from. If you are in Orlando, if you're in Miami, if you're in Fort Lauderdale, if you're in Jacksonville, where else, Dion?
Sarasota, Bradenton. I'm talking about the districts that I used to pass.
Oh, okay,
Pompano
then.
Beach, Florida, Avon Park.
Delray Beach, Avon Park as well, Hawthorne and Citra.
Yes.
If you're in Waycross or Brunswick, Georgia, anywhere you are, go ahead and type that in the chat. We are so excited to have you with us today.
I just had a shout out to Winter Haven, too. Come on now.
All right.
Listen, for all the others, I'm going to represent all the others. If you're outside of Southeastern Conference, just put in the chat where you're from. South Central Conference, Mid-America Union. I got to put those in.
I see Janine.
Just tell us where you are. Even from the island of Trinidad, I'm going to give a shout out to my mom who always watches, Shaki Patrick from Trinidad. I don't know if she's there now, but she always gets with me and says, "Hey, I'm watching from Trinidad."
Roger, put on a jacket.
Hey, there's so much difference
Pat
today.
Pates right here in Orlando.
There's so many different things today. Our positions are different.
Mm-hmm.
Our lighting, our connection, the team is together.
Yes.
We're just having a great time.
Because we're in the same room.
We're the same.
In the same room.
See that?
Hey, listen, great things happen when you're in the same room.
Yes,
and by the way, we're in the upper room. Come on.
In the upper room.
There might be a service somewhere. But again, what a wonderful time to be together and also to be with the Southeastern Conference, the great Southeastern Conference. And we do have a wonderful program today. Before we get into the program, I do want to say to the team, man, what a blessing, what a journey we've had. We don't have all of the team members here today, though, Pastor Paul, because we do have another team member, Dr. John Mills, who's not with us.
That's right.
And he's so critical to our operation. And so maybe the next time we meet together, we'll have Dr. John Mills with us.
We also have a California connection
BT.
with Dr. Brian Taylor, who helps us in the back also. So we have quite a few folks who make this happen for you. And so we just thank God that we have folks who are willing to buy into the vision and make this happen.
So to our Southeastern family and to the rest of our family, we've got an awesome program today, a very critical conversation that we want to get into this afternoon. So we are, let's find out, who do I want to ask? Dr. Wade, Pastor Wade, what is on the table for today? What is on the table?
Well, listen, I just want to say thank you to the administration of Southeastern
absolutely.
Conference for thinking ahead, thinking outside the box. This afternoon in their virtual camp meeting, they thought about, hey, let's have a unique program that meets the needs and be able to share on this vital topic. We are going to be talking about reconnecting with members. Some people, we talked a little bit about that last night. Some of them said missing members, but they're not really missing, but they're not connected. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Some of them are missing, just straight up. Some of them are missing, just MIA. Go on.
But we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to share an initiative that Southern Union and Southeastern in particular are doing to meet the need of that initiative.
Awesome. So, Dr. Henry, so that's what's on the table. So, who's on the menu? I mean, so who is at the table today, Doc?
Well, let me tell you something again. We just continue to have heavyweights coming to the table. And today, oh my, we have Pastor Roger Hernandez, evangelist, ministerial director, Southern Youth. Let me tell you something.
Preacher preaches about salad, man.
One thing about Pastor Hernandez, you cannot go to sleep when this man is preaching.
Mercy.
Because he preaches with power, he's engaging, and what a wonderful person to have here in the Southern Union. And then we have Dr. Owusu, the president of the Southeastern Conference. I served with him on the Constitution and Bylaws Committee. And I'm telling you, he is intelligent. He knows the bylaws, and now he is just blessed to be around a team of people to do ministry at an exceptional level. And then we have the bishop. The bishop is in the house today.
Uh-oh.
The bishop is here.
Who is it?
Dr. Ron Smith.
Whoa.
The president of the Southern Union, one of the fastest growing unions. It might be the biggest union. He'll let us know when he comes on. But he is here, and they're talking about ministry. What I like about our administration, our leaders, is that they believe in ministry. They believe in engaging with the membership so that they can bring about the mission that God has promised, that God has blessed us with, and that's the mission of preaching this everlasting gospel so that those who are hearing the gospel can come and join and wait for the second coming of Jesus Christ. So I'm just excited about who is around the table today.
Hey, all right. Well, let's go ahead and bring them on at this time. There they are. Oh, wow. We are excited to have you guys. Hey, listen, not only, I want to add to a little bit about Dr. Smith. Dr. Smith is not just a union president. He is a preaching union president. He goes around preaching, doing evangelism all throughout the Southern Union and other places as well. I have a Ron Smith preaching voice that one day I'm going to have to use in the pulpit. I've got to run, Dr. Smith. I'm tired of run. That I'm going to have to use one of these days. But listen, we are excited to have each of you gentlemen with us today. Of course, my president, Dr. Owusu, so honored to have you with us and happy for the invitation to come and be a part of this camp meeting event. This is what we do. We know we did not read everybody's full bio. We're going to give each of you just a few seconds to just give a shout out, say hello, tell us maybe a little bit more about who you are, what you're doing. You might just want to say hello to the wife and kids or whatever it is, but we're going to we got all these preachers today. We can't give them the full time. So,
but Pastor Paul, these are the great bishops, though. I don't know if we should. I don't know if we should restrict them.
And bosses and folks who sign checks and stuff. So, unrestricted time. Okay, we're going to start just from your screen, from the left to the right, with Dr. Michael Owusu. Elder, just say hello to the saints and to the audience today. The time is yours. At your leisure. Do whatever you want.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Paul. Thank you. For the host of the Pastors Roundtable. We are glad to have you with us at our Southeastern Conference Camp meeting. And I want to say a special hello to all the constituents of Southeastern Conference. We've had a wonderful weekend. We've been blessed through this camp meeting, and we're glad to be able to join us this afternoon. And let me just take the opportunity, since I have that, I can do whatever I want, I was told. Let me just thank Pastor Roger Hernandez for an awesome message that you delivered last night. You set Southeastern Conference on fire. Elder, thank you very much for the word last night.
All right, Dr. Ron Smith, the time is yours as much as you want, Doc.
All right, I certainly want to appreciate the hosts of this wonderful initiative. This roundtable initiative is dynamic. Pastor Wade, you and I have a wonderful relationship from way back. Let me just leave it there. I promise not to add any appendage on that. Pastor Henry, you and I are going to be spending some time together this fall in the Florida Conference, Altamont Springs Church, and I'm looking forward to evangelizing alongside of you with that congregation. And Pastor Anselm Paul, I knew your father, I know you, and I'm just totally enamored with what God does and just perpetually enhanced and surprised by God's leadership. And Dr. Owusu, thank you for great leadership you continue to provide. And I can't say enough about my coach, my partner, the one who sets the pace for ministry of the Southern Union in the person of Pastor Roger Hernandez. Thank you. I'm just a poor wayfaring stranger just passing through this world of woe, Just a nice literature evangelist trying to find some books that I can sell. That's pretty much it. I am a trained psychologist. I am a minister of the gospel, and I love evangelism, and I'm certainly delighted to be a part of this roundtable. Thank you for your focus, resourcing, and keeping it real. And what's the other one? I love that alliteration. What's the other one?
Being relevant.
Relevant,
Yes.
And you stay relevant. So thank you for building us into this wonderful initiative. Glad to be here today.
Yes.
Awesome. Pastor Hernandez, for the first time, all the time you want.
Good afternoon, everybody, or whenever you're watching this. It's an honor for me to be with this esteemed panel. One of the reasons why I appreciate my union president is because, and the local conference presidents, is because the emphasis they have on evangelism. So I'm thankful because I understand that evangelism is one of the best ways to reconnect people back into the gospel highway.
Yeah.
And I am encouraged in our office, in the Southern Union office, most of the administrative assistants have done a meeting. All the departmental directors do a meeting, and we do that because it starts at the top. And our union president is leading the largest union in the country, and he's doing 4, 5, 6 evangelistic meetings a year.
Wow.
So the culture of evangelism is present in everything we do, and I'm thankful to be here and this afternoon. Thank you for the invitation.
Awesome. That is the longest intro I've ever heard Roger Hernandez give.
I'm kind of nervous. I usually don't have my president right next to me, so I dressed up for him today.
I'm glad you wore your Air Jordans. That's all.
Dress Nikes on.
Air Jordans. Thank you.
Dress Nikes.
Dr. Owusu, one last thing, Dr. Owusu, you and I both have on wonderful neckties along with our suits. We both are Christians. We love the Lord. Aren't you glad, Dr. Owusu,
Wow.
we're not as other men are? Aren't you glad?
That's presidential wear. That's
All righty. Listen, let's have a word of prayer, and then we'll jump right into this topic. We want to get into it as we were preparing to this week. We here at the Pastor Roundtable, we want to hear more about this initiative. So, Dr. Henry, you want to lead us in prayer, and then we'll begin with our first question.
Well, let's pray. Father, we thank you so much again that you've given us this opportunity to talk about ministry. Bless this conversation. Help it to ignite us so that we can do more for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, amen. Before we get started, we want to ask you one more time to hit that share button. Somebody needs to hear what we're going to talk about. Hit the share button, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so that you will not miss any good content that comes our way. But today, to our panelists, we are talking about reconnected. From an organizational perspective, what is the great importance of reconnected? Where does it fall in the list of priorities? Let's start with Dr. Owusu.
Roger, thank you for that question. I think it's very important in terms of reconnecting. Part of our mission as a church, of course, is this gospel commission of reaching people with the gospel. And when we have people who were once members, our own brothers and sisters, who are attending, no longer attending, it is imperative that we make it a priority. One of the first priorities to try to reach out to them, to find a way of trying to reconnect and try to bring them back. So I think it is very important. It ought to be right up there at the very top of what the church does. And so it is critical that we put in every effort that we can make to be able to reach back to those individuals who were once attending but are no longer, for whatever reason, attending, to see how we can get them back.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hernandez?
Well, thank you for the doctor. I think that I understand that sometimes we call people who are not connected to the church missing members. In an age of social media, nobody is really missing. Like if you want to know how easy it is to find you, owe somebody some money. People will find you. They know who you are. It's really unnerving to know the amount of information there is about you that can be easily obtained. So for me, this is a personal issue. I have family members who used to travel in the Gospel Highway. Out of 100 cars that are traveling on Gospel Highway, 47 end up getting off the road. In one of those 47 are family members. So I do this primarily. The first person I think about are my family members. What kind of congregations, what steps need to be made so my family members, this is not some ethereal somebody out there in Adventism. These are my family members. What kind of church would they be able to reconnect back to? And then based on that premise, then I build everything else. So it has to be a high priority because Jesus made it a high priority. So if it's a high priority for Jesus, he told 3 consecutive stories about it on Luke 15, then it has to be a high priority for me.
Dr. Smith, you've been in the work a long time from an organizational point of view. How is this reconnecting so important?
Okay, I think it's important to note that the very essence of Scripture is Yahweh in pursuit of Israel, God in pursuit of his children. As a matter of fact, it's foundationed very, very carefully in Hosea chapter 14 and verse 4, where the word of God declares, and God is speaking to us, I will heal their backsliding. I will love them freely. And the point here is simple and succinct. Christ spent a good deal of his ministry here on earth just trying to reach and reclaim people who were lost or people who were missing. I know we don't call them missing, but people who needed to reconnect in his day. As a matter of fact, the entire chapter, I should say, of Luke 15 showcases in living technicolor some realities, different categories of lost things. You know, we have the parable of the lost sheep. We have the parable of the prodigal. We have the parable of a sweeping woman looking for a coin. And then we have that fourth. Then we have that fourth lost thing, the person who needed to be reconnected, who actually lived at home. So for all practical purposes, in a very thematic way, there is a theological foundation that propels us to build into our mission the whole concept of working for the pursuit of reconnecting with people who we don't know or who need to find their way back.
And Roger, can I jump in again? You know, Dr. Smith said something in terms of the theological imperative, but as he was speaking and talking about what Jesus did, my mind goes back to the book of Genesis itself. When Adam and Eve were disconnected from God, God tried to reconnect with them. The Bible says he came in the cool of evening, calling them, Adam, where are you? He went looking for his children. He tried to get reconnected to them and put a plan in effect that his son would come ultimately to die for the common purpose of not just saving lost souls of those who do not know him, but those of us who have been reconnected to him. So it is imperative. It is part of what the church ought to do. It is part of what the Adventist organization needs to be about. We shouldn't be concerned about just bringing in new people, but we should be very much concerned about reconnecting with those who were once with us and are no longer, because God himself did that in the Garden of Eden and set the example for us.
Okay. You know, it's interesting that this whole motif can probably be ascribed to the entirety of evangelism. And I know we're making a very pointed drive on this, but in reality, when God created all of humanity in his image, he connected himself to all of humanity at the very beginning. So no matter where you are on the belief scale, there is that sense of being reconnected with God. The reality is this, though, gentlemen, I think think as we look around our churches today, in many of our churches, we can find what seems to be empty churches, or at least much emptier churches in many places now than there was 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so in this, I think many people are saying we're losing our young people. We're losing not even just our young people, but we're losing so many members now. When it comes to that rate of attrition, do we have any data on that? What is the current rate of attrition or losing members in our organization, in our denomination now? And what do you think are some of the contributing factors as to why we may be losing some of the members that we're losing? And then thirdly, do we know or believe if the pandemic has impacted that attrition rate at all? What do you think?
Roger, I think Roger Hernandez. Yes, Roger Hernandez.
Hold on, Doc. We can't hear you. Gotta get your mic up here.
Am I okay? Are you all hearing me okay?
There we go.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay. Roger, is the attrition rate, is it somewhere around 47,
Yep.
48?
Yep. That's
You might
correct.
want to comment on that, Roger. I'm not trying to take over the panel, but I'd be interested in hearing what that is and what some of the contributing.
In worldwide Adventism, according to the GC Secretariat, is 47%. It's according to Barna, Christianity, 20% of regular attendees of the 53% that used to attend are not attending after COVID. So there, in young people, it varies from 60 to 70%. So the younger they are, the less they connect with a local congregation, right? So I'm always interested in measurables, right? I think facts are our friends, and we can't just go la 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 la, everything is good. We have to say this is reality. This is the people that disconnect. Let's deal in facts. And a lot of people say, well, the reason they disconnect is that they were never good Adventists in the first place. That is demonstratively false, right? It's not uninformed Adventists who leave. They have much less controversy with our beliefs than our believers. There are some specific issues, and we'll get into that later, why people disconnect, but the rate of attrition is 47. Jesus was the Son of God, perfect in every way, and he had 1 out of 12 that left, right? So even a perfect Jesus had 1 who disconnected. So are we going to be able to keep everybody? No. But I would never eat in a restaurant that 47 out of 100 meals gave me diarrhea. I wouldn't take my car to a mechanic that 47 out of 100 cars are messed up, or a doctor that 47 out of 100 patients dies. So we can do better, and there are ways that we can do better, but it has to be intentional.
May I sort of add to that, Dr. Paul? I don't want.
Before you do that, Dr. Smith, I didn't do well in math. Actually, I didn't do too bad, but when we say the attrition rate is 47%, what does that mean? So you got 100 people in the church. Let's do that in some real numbers. So there's 100 people. What does that 47 mean? That means that 47 of them leave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
These are not 47 that don't come to church.
They just they're saying peace. I'm out.
60% of your attendees don't come to church. Average attendance is 40 out of 100. Average attrition is 47 out of 100. So 47 leave, and then from the 100% of those 53%, 60% don't attend. So that's
Wow.
There's a lot of committed people that love Jesus and love the Adventist message, but we have significant losses, and there's important work to be done there.
Okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Smith. Go for it.
Oh, that's okay. That's fine. I appreciate that question you asked because it added light to my perspective as well. I'm so glad that we have fostered what I consider to be a comprehensive scope of the different modalities for mission and ministry, which is inclusive of public evangelism. And at this point in time, we're talking about reconnecting. Not that I want to take too much time, but I'm really excited about the prospect of boots on the ground evangelism. We've been doing virtual meetings, and I've just completed one today. We've had a beautiful baptism today from a virtual meeting, Dr. Owusu, and we probably had maybe a score of individuals through virtuality, and we had the baptism, and we took our boots on the ground and actually engaged in that. But here's the point I really want to make now. I'm really in the mode for public evangelism, but we still have to engage in the work of reconnecting. And that is the part of the motif of the Southern Union Initiative. I'm so excited that all 8 of the conferences of the Southern Union corroborate with that concept, including Dr. Owusu. I've discovered that there are some elements that are pretty much consistent, some principles that pretty much hold true in working with disconnected people. And it kind of gives me some peekaboo insight as to why they disconnect. One thing I've discovered about people who are disconnected, who we're trying to retrieve or reconnect with, most of these people still believe. They still believe that the Seventh-day Adventist Church has the truth for this day.
Yes.
So to think that they've attitudinally apostatized, they really have not in their ideology, in their theology. They still believe that the Seventh-day Adventist Church has the truth for this day. Also, another dimension that I've discovered surrounding disconnected people, they don't want nor do they need lectures concerning the standards of the church.
Okay.
That's what I'm finding out just doing public evangelism. I have the privilege in doing public evangelism of reconnecting with people who are disconnected. Another element I've discovered, in order for the disconnected person to justify himself in the course of action he or she's taken in leaving or disconnecting from the church, which they know incidentally, which they know is wrong, that person usually will find fault with the parents, the church, or fellow members. It's usually not theological. It's born out of a relationship. And God has not appointed me to be a DA, a district attorney for them or the church. But I think what's really important that I've discovered in doing is just to hear what they have to say. I've also discovered that many of these individuals, they have something that they feel is too great for God to forgive. Most people who are disconnected, they usually feel they have something going on that's much too great for God to forgive. A disconnected person also doesn't share his real feelings with you if you seek to reconnect with him until he or she knows whether or not he can trust you. So earning trust becomes a very critical dimension. I just wanted to mention those areas of consistency that I found to hold true surrounding disconnected people.
I just have a quick question regarding those who disconnected. So are we saying people, these individuals, they disconnected from the local church or they disconnected from the church body? Which one, or both?
Well, what usually precedes the disconnection from the body is the disconnection from the local fraternity of which they were a part.
Okay.
And that's what I mean when I say it. Their disconnection is usually fostered by some relationship that has gone south, that just hasn't gone well. Something has gone down, something has hurt them, and probably Roger will say more about that as he gets more granular in some of the nuts and bolts.
And I think Dr. Smith pretty much said everything. And usually the relationship is usually the issue. Most people who have disconnected, when you do talk with them, a lot of times it's not about the doctrines, it's not over even the worship styles. So usually it's just some kind of relationship. Somebody has been hurt by something that happened in the church, and they stop coming as a result of that. I was going to say they leave. They really just stop coming. They don't really leave. They don't go away. They just stop coming because of some of these broken relationships that do exist. Yeah.
So actually, you made a great case there about the reasons why. But the question is, how has the pandemic, it's been a year now, how has the pandemic added to this tradition? Anyone?
Anyone or the specific?
Well, I forgot, there's no anyone here. Pastor Hernandez.
Well, the pandemic has just exposed a reality, right? And what has happened is that people who it just accelerated the process. People who already were having issues all of a sudden found themselves not having to attend a building, right? And they found a different preacher online that they liked more than their local pastor. And I say this: discipleship is much discipleship is much more than church attendance, but it's never less than.
Wow.
Okay.
So this concept of the pandemic has shown our idols, right? That we idolize some things in like a building, that in order for us to meet, we have to be in a building, right? And now we're meeting online. We're meeting online. So it has decentralized, and what has done is that people who are already kind of skittish about whatever is happening in the local church, now they're looking elsewhere and it's like, well, I'm going to listen to Wesley this weekend. I'm going to listen to Anselm this weekend. I'm going to listen to David Ashrick this weekend. I'm going to go camping this weekend. So the people who were already committed, which was your 20%, has stuck through it. But others who were not initially committed to your local congregation in the beginning, so the new measuring mark is not attendance, but engagement. That's I believe that evangelism is one of the greatest things you can do to reconnect people. I just finished a meeting. I'll tell you a 60-second story. I finished a meeting in the hills of Tennessee. It's a place called Rogersville. And it is just like it sounds. Rogersville. It's a really small town. It's a really small town. 50-member church, right? The young adult had issues with the previous pastor. Was a previous pastor several pastors ago had been run out of town, and they were very fond of them. And young adults don't fight; they just leave, right? So just disconnected, and then we did evangelism, and we had online and in person, right? And she watched online all week, and on Sabbath she came to church, right? So the front door, right? The front door is not in your local front door. The new front door is online. People are going to check you out online, and then they're going to reconnect. So it's amazing because she has a sister there, and the sister's like, hey, my sister's here today. And the daughter's like, hey, my daughter's here today. But that happened because of evangelism. What would have happened if that church had not done an evangelistic meeting? I don't know. But people say, well, until we reclaim everybody who's left, we should stop doing evangelism. We shouldn't bring any more people in until we get. That's the worst counsel in the history of counsel.
Wow.
These are not mutually exclusive. Wow. These are not mutually exclusive things. It's not reclaim, right, or redeem. It's both and. Both and.
And I'm certainly appreciative, just to corroborate further, I'm appreciative of the pandemic from the standpoint of, I appreciate the pandemic not in general, but for this purpose. It has predisposed some of the modalities for reaching and ministering in ways that are more penetrative. We sort of penetrate arenas that ordinarily we would not through boots on the ground modality where there is no pandemic. I've been forced under these unusual circumstances, these trying circumstances, to be more creative. I've become a bit more savvy with technology. I have found that there is a challenge, and if we often hide, as Roger said, I like the way he framed that just now. It's not, it's more than church attendance, but it's not less than. And obviously, we often hide behind the fact that one attends church and we have no idea how disconnected they might be. So I'm really honored. I'm really honored that the pandemic has afforded me the opportunity to try some new creative things to operate on a more interpersonal plane with individuals. Put on my mask, operate from a distance, and really try to find people. Seriously go out and try to find and reconnect with people has been not a shift of the vision that we have for our organization, but it certainly has added maybe some creativity within the cracks, so we could sort of crystallize our approach to finding people.
Yep.
We're getting a text, I think, that looks like Dr. Henry has fallen asleep on us. He hasn't. His camera is just frozen. So he is alive. He is. Looks like I was frozen there for a second. We're going to fix that in just a second.
But listen, before we move up this topic, I know we're at Southeastern's camp meeting. We're kind of focusing in on Southeastern. We're looking at the union. We're going to jump right into the initiative in a little bit. But Dr. Owusu, what are some of the challenges, even in this discussion about reconnecting and the pandemic, have you seen in your conference?
I think the challenge goes to what Roger mentioned earlier in terms of engagement. I think a lot of times we put emphasis on church attendance. So when people are attending and we take it in numbers, then we just measure it that way. But people can sometimes attend and be disengaged. And I think the pandemic now has brought that to the fore. So some of our members who were attending but were somehow not engaged are now finding other places to go. And I think Roger put his hand right on it. Sometimes most of our churches, quite a few of our churches, were able to stream online. Because we're home, the number of times that I took the opportunity to just go around just checking the different streams. And you find out there were some churches that were doing very well. And when you look at sometimes in the chat, you find out that some of the people who are commenting were members of other churches. They were not engaged, but now they're finding something somewhere else, and they're shifting over there. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges that churches, congregations are going to find. We need to find a way to engage our members, and if they're not engaged, then they're going to find somewhere else to go. And the pandemic has brought this right to the fore.
Awesome.
All right. Are we going to play a video right now? Are we ready for that video?
Yes.
I'm just glad that you're awake.
Yeah.
So listen, we've set up the antagonist. The antagonist in this story is the attrition and the attrition rate and what's happening in churches all across North America and even here in Southeastern. So we are delighted that people have been working on this. And so we want to show you this video as we get started in this next segment.
That's right.
My dear Southern Union constituents, I am honored to participate in the mission of the Southern Union. The Lord anointed our year of public evangelism just a few years ago, where thousands were baptized. I believe it was in the year 2019. Records were set. This year, He has so energized many of our churches through our year of church revitalization, even in the midst of this year's COVID-19 pandemic. As we look ahead, 2021 will be the Southern Union year of reconnecting. If we're interested in people coming back to church, we may want to consider asking ourselves the following 5 questions to reverse the 47% attrition rate. Firstly, we might ask, where are they? Over half of the people who stopped attending church said no one visited or contacted them. We might also want to ask, secondly, why did they leave in the first place? The top 3 reasons usually surround issues such as life's hardships, theological differences, or they may just simply prefer watching and experiencing electronic church from home. The point we seek to make here is simple. Not all people leave for the same reason. Thirdly, you might want to ask, are you avoiding the big mistakes, such as sending them envelopes so they might contribute to your building campaign, or they haven't been contacted for any other reason at all? A fourth question can be, when is the best time to ask them to come back? As a pastor, I've discovered, and so many have shared with me, their success in using important dates to invite them back, such as Mother's Day, Christmas, or the New Year's holiday season, Easter, and other special events. Special programs make transition back to church somewhat easier. Well, a fifth question we might want to ask and consider, how will you greet them when they return? Inviting them back to the same drama they left is somewhat counterproductive. It might be helpful for us to educate our churches how to receive prodigals, understanding that some will end up leaving for good. They may never come back, but it should not be the 47%. So my appeal, won't you try in 2021 to get in touch with the prodigal son and just let him know that his loving father is longing for him to return home? Won't you find just one sheep that is strayed? I assure you, as you go about the work of reconnecting, the Heavenly Shepherd is going to help you. Let's pull together. Let's bring our brothers and our sisters back home. May God bless you.
What a message from our president of the union. And so, we do definitely have this initiative by the Southern Union, by the Southeastern Conference, and other conferences probably have joined into this, about this reconnection. Please, you got to share with us now. Tell us more about Reconnect 2021. Pastor Hernandez, can you tell us more about that?
Well, first of all of us are glad that you're awake.
hey, I rose up. Yes.
I'm very excited about the vision, our administration at the union with the different administrations in our local conferences. Have a vision for reconnecting. It follows a 3-year pattern where we talked about emphasize evangelism, and then revitalization, and then reconnection. And there is if you are watching this and you're a part of the Southern Union, I have really good news for you. We have a brand new, completely free, if you're part of the Southern Union, resource, book, and videos that you can take and use with your church to reconnect people. It's a very simple resource. It's just a tool. A hammer is no good if it's sitting on the ground or in your toolbox. You can use to help your church understand what process, so your churches can become incubators and not omelet makers, right? So we can do this on purpose and intentionally. When we think, I'm gonna do this, eventually we'll get around to it, versus like, here's this tool, let's read this book together with our church boards, let's have our members read it, and if it's free, why not get the whole church involved and do it in their prayer meetings, in your Sabbath schools, and in your worship services during 4 weeks, so we can reconnect more people to the gospel highway.
Okay. So I want to turn to Dr. Owusu. What is the expectation that you have of the congregants in the Southeastern Conference as it relates to Reconnect 2021?
Thank you, Pastor Henry. And the expectation is this. I think throughout the Southern Union, all the conferences have signed on to be part of this initiative, and I'm glad that our conference is part of that. But the expectation is that all our churches will make an effort, make it a priority in trying to reconnect with members who have stopped coming, who are not attending, because it's important. It's all part of the Gospel Commission. We are not only to bring in new people, but those who are attending and have stopped attending, we need to make it a priority. This expectation is that all our churches, and we're going to partner with the union in trying to make those resources available to all our churches so that we can truly do this, not just talk about it, but actually put it into practice and being able to reach and to reconnect with others who have not attended. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, Roger mentioned this is personal for him. This is personal for me also. I also have family members. I have friends, who are members of the church, who are attending, who are no longer attending for various reasons. And I can imagine that all across our churches, there are many of us who are friends, who are family members, who for some reason have stopped attending church. And I think if we love them and we are concerned about them, if we want to see them saved, then we have an obligation to do all that we can. So the expectation in Southeastern Conference is that every church, all our 175 churches and companies, will just rally around this vision. And the conference will partner with our churches, making the resources available. If we have to bring in Roger to do training for our pastors and elders, we're going to do whatever we can so that we can reach everybody, including those who are attending and may not be attending right now.
Dr. Smith, you in the video that you spoke at and we heard just a while ago, you said that the church needs to know how to receive prodigals. I think that's a very excellent point. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? How can a church be prepared to receive the prodigals? How can we do that?
I certainly am honored to do that. If you would permit me, I did kind of give some points earlier on that probably predispose people who have disconnected to return. It might answer a portion of that, but I'd like to defer, if I may, this question to Roger Hernandez, since his material pretty much answers with more specificity how we can possibly receive men and women back. Yeah. Roger?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Smith. I think a couple of just very practical things. We need to look at a long game, right? So the first time somebody shows up to church, or you visit them, or you connect with them, the first question out of your mouth should not be, "When are you coming back?" Did you know we have a capital campaign going on? Are you going to donate? That Jesus is coming back. Are you going to be lost? I think we should do more listening than talking. More listening about, let me hear the reasons why you left. See, if we look at people as a monolith, right, that we believe everybody left for the same reasons, then we won't know how to target our strategy. And the fourth chapter in the book deals with that specific. There are 7 things that you can do as a church to prepare your church for the prodigals to return. I had a mother of 3 young adults call me and say, "Pastor, my 3 young adults are not going to church, and I would like for you to pray for them so they can return." And my first reaction was, "Sure, I'll pray for them." And then I remember the church they left. And I noted, and I remember the division that was there and the politicking that happened inside the church with different racial components. The Dominicans didn't support the Puerto Ricans, and the Puerto Ricans didn't support the Dominicans. I know that doesn't happen in any of the African American churches, but it happens in Hispanic churches. And I said, I want them to return to church. I don't know if I want them to return to that one. Right?
Wow.
Because of the toxicity of that situation, right? So I have to prepare my church. I visited a church in the past year. I'm not going to say where. As soon as I arrived, there was a person at the door who got really close to my face and said, "Masks don't work, right?"
Oh my!
Oh, wow.
Because I had a mask. That was my greeting.
Happy
See,
Sabbath.
if you saw Dr. Smith come into the church, you know he's the preacher, right? Because he looks like a preacher. Like there's not much difference between him and the Apostle Paul. He looks like a preacher.
Even
right?
if he was
I had my mask on. I had my mask on. I had my Jordans on. I was there, and so they had no idea who I was. What if that was my first time coming back?
Yeah.
after 5 years gone. And I said, you know, I'm immunocompromised, but I found out during this pandemic that I need Jesus in my life. And I show up at church, and this dude, and there's one of those in your church, and they never die and they never leave, right? And
Mercy.
imagine if I had shown up after 5 years, and this guy gets in my face and tells me, masks don't work, right? Like, I don't want to have a political discussion with you. So there is a preparation that needs to be had, and the books takes the church through that preparation, things that we can practically do to make sure we are incubators and not omelet makers. You know the difference between the two.
I want,
And Dr. Henry, to corroborate, since you asked me that question, probably one of the most horrific dynamics is kind of what I referenced indirectly in the video. Just canvassing someone for some special initiative, probably involving money, and they've not been contacted for any other reason whatsoever. I mean, that's kind of like a felony. I mean, nothing is more distasteful. Nothing is more distasteful than begging someone for money in the name of mission. And and the question really is, as they look at you, what am I? Chopped liver? Do I matter? Mission to whom? Do I count in those that you're fostering a mission to? So that's one of the no-nos, I would think, and it just sticks out in my mind. But the 7 things that Roger indicated are in his volume, I think are very, very useful to us in terms of how we can be predisposed to greet people when they return.
I wanted to touch on something very, very important here. At the roundtable, as you know, we like to make things relevant, resourced, and real. And one of the things we talked about is our church hierarchy in terms of how church is structured. And we have here on our panel today the union, and we have the conference, and we're talking about the member. Most of the folks who watch Pastor's Roundtable are members in the pew. And so the question I'm having here, we tend to want to not be a hierarchy kind of structure where the law is made up top and is taken down to the bottom. But here is something that the union has initiated, but yet still it affects the local member in the pew. Share with us. There are some folks who like to say, we don't want to do what the union does, or we don't want to do what, really what the conference, because they really may be disconnected. How is this being received at the local level? Dr. Owusu or Dr. Smith, you started the process. How is it received?
Yes, Pastor Wade, you and I pastored together at Ephesus Church, and you know what we did a lot. We did a lot of public evangelism, and obviously we had a lot of boots on the ground. I can't take credit for the stalwart leader that you have become, but I'm just glad that you and I had a chance to walk side by side. Don't forget that I'm the one who brought you in ministry. Don't forget that. Okay?
The whole world knows that now.
You know that and hear that. Okay, but the reality is this. I often say that the Church of God is not a preservatory for pickled saints.
Come on.
The Church of God is not a convalescent home for sick soldiers. The church is not merely a waiting station for those who want to sprout halos and be launched into glory. But the church really has a job to do. And I maintain that there are 3 levels that we ought to think about and think through. We often call it edification, developing a relationship with God through the study of his word, edification. Secondly, evangelization, sharing our faith according to the experience we've had, and just honing our testimony where we can share that with people and inviting them to Jesus Christ. And the third is emancipation / reconnecting. And basically, I don't know how other offices are resourced and staffed, but I've got a dynamic human being who works in my office, not just because he's on this panel while I say this. His name is Roger Hernandez, and he holds our feet to the fire. And he basically tells us, if you all are administrators of this organization, I'm going to expect you to set an example for us. So people pat me on the back and they say, Ron, you run 6 full-fledged 3-week evangelistic meetings a year. Some say that's outdated. Roger tells me you must go. So I go. And basically, I feel that one of the best ways to communicate and to allow whatever I do that's useful to be effervescent and a granular way to the furthest reaches of the organization, including the members in our pews, is to do it myself. And by the grace of God, the influence will catch some fire.
Awesome. Dr. Owusu, can you shed some light on this hierarchy connection with the structural organization doing this thing called Reconnect?
Sure. I think this, as you mentioned, is an initiative that the Southern Union has put out, but it's not a top-down kind of approach, because I think they research it very carefully to look at local churches and what is happening on the ground level, and the union being in the position, to be able to financially. Dr. Smith, I can say that financially kind of resources and provide the resources for that are just simply providing the resource. They're making it available to conferences and to local churches. They're not forcing anyone. But I think when we see what they've put together, these resources, when we see the time that they put in to look at this concept of reconnecting, any local church will recognize that this is something that the local church is supposed to be doing anyway. So I see this as a way of the union coming aside the local church and providing the resources and the help for us to do what we are supposed to do in the first place. So I'm just glad that that can happen. But this is something really that's a grassroots kind of a project that every church needs to be embarked on. And I just simply see this as help from the union. And we are glad here at Southeastern Conference that we can tap into that help, tap into those resources, and take advantage of that in trying to reconnect with our brothers and sisters who are no longer attending.
Awesome.
Just follow up, Roger, just to follow up to that. It's important to note that this is just not something that Roger and myself, we dream about within the union. And we try to just totally encroach upon our organization and force feed the layers of the organization. But just so you know a bit about how the machinery has operated in relationship to visioning and casting vision and trying to inspire, we regularly have what we call President's Council.
That's right.
Okay, and Roger's usually a regular invitee and a lecturer and coach of our conference presidents when we come together. Dr. Owusu can attest to that. Roger is at the top of every agenda of every executive committee. He's at the top of every agenda of every president's council. And the conference presidents, the 8 conference presidents within the Southern Union, alongside of the 3 university presidents, as well as the Advent Health System CEO president, we all sit at a table. We don't have a sophisticated round table like Dr. Paul and Dr. Henry and Dr. Wade, but our table is rectangular. It's long because we have to accommodate a whole gang of presidents. So they're there, and we're just picking one another apart, and we throw all of our stuff on the table, and each president is representing their territory, and nobody is shy about saying this doesn't fit where I live. Thank you for your vision, but thank you for your quest to do boots on the ground. But we didn't ask for this. They're not shy about telling me when something doesn't fit. But usually, out of our transparency, our willingness to respectfully disagree with an initiative, we come up with great initiatives that I think work for the church because we all agree on them. And this is one that was birthed by all of our conference presidents that have come together that represents each of the areas of our geography. And I want to reiterate, it's made up of the 8 conferences within the Southern Union, which is inclusive of Southeastern, one of our largest conferences, coupled with our university presidents. We have 3 universities, Advent Health University, Southern Adventist University, and Oakwood University, as well as our Advent Health System, our Advent Health organization that has the president, Terry Shaw, who's there as well. So we have all hands on deck in terms of executive leadership. It's a matter now of just proliferating this out and fanning it out amongst our organizations according to the need that we identify the way we see. Dr. Owusu, did I say anything out of school?
Not at all. You hit it right on the head. That's good. Straight to the point.
Okay, Roger Hernandez, is this pretty consistent with what you see and know?
100%. Yeah, 100%. And let me throw since we talk about stats, let me throw a stat out there. 65% of people who are disconnected from the church, said that when they stopped attending, nobody visited them. If we believe this is an issue with the union or the conference or the pastor, we're sadly mistaken. These are our brothers and sisters. So until we understand that we are all the church, and if I don't see somebody in church for 2 or 3 weeks, I need to find out. I don't need a pastor to tell me. I need to call on them, say what's going on, what's up, how's your life, is there anything I can help you? Instead of this individualistic faith that is like me, 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 feed me, preach to me, sing to me, help me, versus like, hey, I'm not a church to be served, but to serve, and that includes the people who are disconnected. So all of us can do something, from the person who just got baptized, to the person who's an elder for 20 years, to the pastors, to the conference, to the union. The reason I am encouraged is because I don't hear my union president talk about evangelism. He does evangelism, right? So I'm not. I'm not inspired by words. I'm inspired by deeds, by actions, right? So it's set from the top, from the leaders to the leaders to the leaders. Everybody's a leader in a particular circle of influence. So I want to use my influence to make sure that I am intentional, looking around and looking at people that I used to see before the pandemic that now are no longer there, right? When the churches open up. And where are they? I'm not gonna just, well, I guess they weren't true Adventists to begin with. Maybe they're taking care of a sick parent. Maybe they're going through issues with a divorce, and they feel shame about coming back. I can do something. Everybody can do something. And if we all do something, imagine if you have 5 families that are not attending, and you reclaim or reconnect one. That's one is better than 0. Just because it's not perfect shouldn't be just. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. Just we try to save everyone. Is everyone going to come back? No, but more people will come back than if we don't try anything.
Sure.
Excellent. So listen, guys, I know our time is rushing ahead of us. Pastor Hernandez, you mentioned a resource. I've heard 7 points. I read what you have, and I saw that there is 4 points. They call it RAMP. Could you kind of unpack that for us today so that we can get a sense of what exactly Reconnect 2021 is?
Okay, ramp means a ramp is something you use to get back on a highway, right? Somebody is disconnected from the gospel highway. So how do we get them back on the highway? You go on a ramp. So ramp is 4 letters, 4 chapters, 4 words,
Come on.
right? The R starts with research. Like, I have to do a membership audit. Where are they? Why they leave? What's going on in their lives? That's the research part. The A is things to avoid. Don't do this. Spells it out. Don't do this. We assume people have emotional intelligence, but sometimes common sense is not very common. So it's just clearly outlined. These are the things to avoid. The M is for ministry. What kind of ministry are we going to do to them? What practical ramp events can you do to allow people to reconnect in a very natural way? And then the P is for prepare. There is some preparation that the church has to be intentional about. So as the prodigals come home, as Dr. Ron Smith was saying, as the prodigals come home, we're waiting for it. And we're more like the father and less like the older brother. So that's the ramp. One of the chapters has 7 points in how to prepare your church. Okay. But and then they come with 4 videos from 4 local church pastors who are implementing it. And, we sent it to every pastor in the union. They have the resource. If it hasn't reached you, it's going to pretty soon. You can download it. You can study it in your board. You can take your church through them. You can do a sermon series on it. The possibilities are endless. Every chapter at the end has 7 questions that you need to wrestle with to make sure you come out on the other side of this strategy. But once again, it's only a tool. And a tool is as good as the person who is using it. Yeah. So it's free. Significant resources were put into creating the resource. Now it's up to us to utilize it.
Okay, I've got a question, gentlemen, and this one is I'm just kind of curating some of the questions or comments that I've seen in the chat, and I'm going to pose it a little differently than it's read there, and I've seen this in a number of comments. There are a number of cultures within our churches, and I'm not saying any ethnic culture. Some may lean that way more than others, but they seem to look for more reasons or excuses to kick people out of the church than they try to find excuses to get people into the church. Mm-hmm. As administrators and as ministerial director, what is there any action that you take or counsel that you could give or foot that you can put down, or how do you address that when it comes to your attention? And it's not just necessarily the members. Sometimes there are pastors that take that posture as well. Sometimes it's the members, and maybe the pastor is having that fight with it. How do you address it? What do you do?
And that's a very interesting question, a very appropriate question, a riveting question, because it does strike the very nerve center of our intentions in terms of how we live and move and have our being as church people. Sometimes we subconsciously want to press the delete button and just sort of get rid of some people. We subconsciously move in that arena without articulating it. We are going through a process right now, which I won't take time to elaborate, in terms of making sure our membership lists are properly calibrated and synchronized. We have something we call Adventist in our regular church roles, and I'm discouraging churches from just recklessly dropping members. As Roger or someone rightly said, it doesn't make sense in the 21st century for anybody to be missing the kind of resources we have to identify any and everybody. I had a pattern as a young pastor. I remember I was pastoring a church in Harlem, New York City. It was called Ephesus Church. They kind of asked Dr. Dion Henry to come there, and he said, no way, I don't want to do that.
He sure did.
Leave me alone unless I die. But anyway, I was there. I didn't mean to say it, Mr. Dr. Henry, I'm sorry. Basically, I was there, and I tried to, folk would say, you need to purge the books. I said, purge the books. I said, I'm saying, in my head, I'm saying, these are real people.
Purge.
These are real people. And then as I thought about it further, I said, you know what? If there are some individuals who we can't absolutely just, as we've scoured with Brillo and Mr. Clean, and we just, down every nook and cranny, we just could not find them. Or if we discovered they were really dead, I'm not laughing because they died, but some of us carry a lot of load in our books surrounding dead people and people who live in Hawaii or possibly Amsterdam, or England or Germany. Basically, we might have to do some adjustment of that. Here's what I try to do. I try to always engage in the work of adding, seeking, reconnecting, and adding to make sure that I don't lose any ground. I just have a problem personally in shrinking memberships as reflected by books. I just have a problem with that personally. And I feel that there's something I can do about that as a minister. And I try to engage whatever church I'm affiliated with in going through the tough work of putting some boots on the ground, trying to reconnect with people and trying to baptize people before we press the delete button in the interest of scouring our books or lightening our books so that we won't have the kind of taxation that comes when our memberships are larger, and sometimes we compromise even our subsidies that we receive, and we're willing to do that just to get our churches to be smaller. I don't ever want to bash the church of which I'm a part, but it always amazed me, Dr. Anselm, it always amazed me that there are so many wonderful faith traditions who study the science of how to get people in, and somehow it drives me crazy when I sense that there's elements in our church that study the science of how to screen people out.
Mercy. Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense to me. So I'm praying for the burden of Jesus. He loved the backslider. He loved, I don't want to just categorize it a missing person. He loved the disconnected, and he pursued them.
Doc, I think that people were saying you were preaching, and they heard Wintley Phipps getting ready to sing your appeal just now. We can listen. If you were just joining us, we're almost we are here at the Pastors Roundtable. This is the Southeastern Conference edition of the Pastors Roundtable, and we are here on site for the first time and together at the Pastors Roundtable. But we are here in the church where we are going to be streaming the rest of camp meetings. So you're hearing some of that in the background. So we are not going to charge you for being able to hear Wintley as we are getting ready to move into the next section in just a few minutes here. But we've got one more question. Oh, anybody else wanted to take a stab at that, by the way? Roger or Pastor Owusu, Dr. Owusu?
I think Dr. Smith really kind of covered it. I think we need to be careful when it comes to church membership. I think when a person makes a decision to join the church, we need to be careful when it comes to taking people out of the church. I know in the past we used to use the word disfellowship, and I think we don't use that anymore. We now talk about removing people from membership. And that needs to be done with some care and some concern. Yes, there may be time that they may require that some kind of action needs to be taken, but we need to be careful in doing that. The thing that bothers me, and has bothered me over the years, is that when sometimes we remove people from membership, they become like pariah. We just cast them away. But the church is supposed to be a redemptive place. The church is supposed to be a place of reconciliation. It is not a place for us to be casting out people. The truth of the matter is there's none of us in the church who are perfect. Nobody is perfect. All of us have some issues, except that sometimes some people's issues become more public. And so sometimes we kind of heighten those, and we raise that to a certain specter, and we are quick to get rid of people as opposed to trying to bring people back. So I think we just need to do that with some care and some compassion, and try to find ways of restoring people as opposed to cutting off people, which is what we sometimes do. And that is very unfortunate, because that is not what Jesus came to do. He came to seek and to save the lost. So, and that's what he came to do, not to cast off people. And I think we need to be very careful when it comes to how we do that.
Wow, good
Pastor
stuff.
Paul, I know you got another question going, and we won't even take this comment that I'm going to make and really elaborate on it. But I'm sensing that we need to really talk about this idea of disfellowship and removal. And then we could connect that with having the church to be as Dr. Ron Smith said, how to receive the prodigal son. Because when people have been removed, let's talk about not just missing, but being removed. Are there some other principles that we use to gain them back? How about pastors who have been removed? Are these same principles that we're using now applying to them? How about
that's a whole nother show, Doc Henry. You're getting us into it.
I want to pass the baton to you. And realistically, is this? Listen, I think this reconnect idea is powerful, and we're taking this initiative. We're going forward, but let's look at it from all of these aspects, and how can we do it in a way that will represent Jesus Christ and draw people to Him? So
Well, good. I maybe to tack on to that, Pastor Hernandez, I'd like for you to take a stab at that, but from this angle, at the previous question, those. So if you've got a Pastor Hernandez, who calls you and says, "This is the culture of my congregation," how do you counsel that pastor? And then maybe some of the things that Dr. Henry just mentioned as well. What do you say to that pastor who feels like he's got a congregation and he's fighting that battle uphill? How does he, or that elder who maybe call you, he or she, how do you respond to them?
Well, do it slowly but intentionally. God's not called us to be bouncers. He calls us to be bridge builders.
Okay.
And this attitude of like, I'm
hold on, Raj. You got to say that again. That's a tweetable moment. He's not called us. Go again.
Yeah, not called to be bouncers. Called to be bridge builders. So I, just like that guy came up to me with the mask on, what happens in churches is, because of the lack of interest in having difficult conversations, we allow dysfunction to fester, and we treat people how to treat us, right? If somebody, I cannot believe that was the first time that happened, right? With the story that I told you about me.
Right.
I don't think that guy was cool every day, and then the moment that I showed up, he told me that masks don't work. I'm pretty sure he said that to other people, right? So the question is, what kind of conversations has the pastor had with that person? It's usually not your whole church. It's usually a couple of instigators. But we say, well, he has a good heart. He works hard, but he's sometimes rough around the edges. Well, no. Well, no. And as a leader, it is my job to have hard conversations. But we are deathly afraid of them, because we don't want to ruffle feathers, because then they call the conference, and then we're afraid of what's going to happen. And this is a whole other conversation, right? But I have to have difficult conversations, because my leadership is going to be determined by my ability to have hard conversations.
Yeah. Okay.
Some leaders don't want to have them. They just want to kick the can down the road. And it's like, well, I just gotta bear it until I get a healthier church in the future. And meanwhile, like, imagine if you're God, why would you send somebody to that church if that person or those two persons are there? Right? So when we confront it, there's usually other people that unite and say, yeah, we've never liked that either, but we were afraid to say something because nobody's ever stood. So bullies you have to stand up to bullies, right? Even if you get punched in the face.
Wow.
Because it might not be that you will reap all the rewards of making those changes, but the pastor after you will be very grateful, right? About the changes you made. So inaction and spiritualizing, not talking to people, is like, well, we just got to pray about it. God is saying, listen, I already heard your prayers. I'm telling you, confront, right? When it deals with people, Jesus had very few harsh words for sinners. His harsh words was for Pharisees.
Wow. Okay, listen, we got about 6 minutes left, and I'm seeing the chat is kind of blowing up here on that question that Dr. Henry raised about pastors. How do we reconnect with pastors, or those who have been very much in the spotlight? I don't have the I'm not brave enough to address this to any of the specific anybody specific, but in the let's see if we can take 3 minutes. If anybody wants to take a stab at that very quickly among our guests. I know that it's a bigger discussion than 3 minutes, but it's popping up. Our people are asking the questions, talking about it. What do you say to that?
Paul, let me take a stab at it, Pastor Paul. I really want to take a risk here in responding to this. May not be the most politically correct response I'm going to give right now, but it's a very transparent one. And I'm going to say it. I'm a pastor. If you knew about me, what I know about me, I will not have the guts to be on this Zoom.
Wow.
I feel so rebuked in my own spirit. I could not even face you. I couldn't preach a sermon. But because of God's grace, because of the gospel of a second chance, maybe others never knew it was a second chance, but God knew. And he's shown me grace. And I want to show that kind of grace and embrace for my pastoral colleagues, as well as my members and loved ones, the fraternity of our church. I want to show that same regard for people who have erred, who have messed up, who've gotten disillusioned, who are burned out. And I want to embrace them and shepherd them back into the arms of Jesus, because that was my saving grace.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I think Dr. Smith said it all right. It's the church is about a ministry of reconciliation, and that's the ministry Christ has given us, and that applies to the member in the pew and the pastor. Pastors are not perfect human beings. Pastors may make mistakes. Pastors are sinners, just like the member in the pew. And when we do fall, then we expect that those who are stronger to find a way to try to strengthen us and to restore us. And so when situations happen to some of our brothers and sisters who are pastors, that expectation would be that we do not just cast them away, and just cut them off. But somehow we find a way of being able to reach, of reconnecting with them, and somehow, as Dr. Smith says, loving them back into the arms of Jesus Christ, because that is all that matters. The person's eternal salvation. Wow. That is more important than the position that he holds.
Wow, gentlemen, I think that's the topic for another show, when pastors hurt people. And I think most pastors would say that's very much a two-way street. So I look forward to being able to have that discussion and how much that impacts this discussion today, the disconnect that often happens in our churches. So we'll look forward to being able to have that discussion going forward. What's our call to action today for Southeastern, for Southern Union? Gentlemen, if there's something, Roger or Dr. Smith, that you want to, just a call to action to those across the union that are watching today, what's that call to action? And then Dr. Owusu, we want to ask you that question as we close out today. What's the call to action to Southeastern?
20-second response. I really, if I were to make an appeal, I'm not a one-shot gentleman. I try different modalities, but let me just say, if you really want to get into the ambiance of searching for the lost and having a burden for souls, just do some boots on the ground. When Roger Hernandez comes through and he's looking for Bible instructors to assist him with an evangelistic meeting, or when I bring my System for Survival campaign, just join up with the Bible working team. There's a wonderful opportunity when your pastor invites you, or some leader who comes through, invites you to be a part of an evangelistic team. Go for the ride. Because you will never come out the same. You will come out more compassionate. You will come out more restorative in your disposition, and you certainly will be poised in your attitude to reconnect with people.
Listen, before we go on, there are a number of folks who are asking. They're outside of the Southern Union. They love what they heard about the resource. Is the resource available outside of the union?
The video resource is available for free. It's in the YouTube channel. You can go to my YouTube channel, Pastor Roger Hernandez, on the ramp, in the playlist, ramp or rampa in Spanish. The book itself is for sale outside the Southern Union through Advent Source. So you can get it in their website. If you're a Southern Union church, it's free for you. Outside the Union, very discounted price, but it's just Advent Source. So after Sabbath, go check them out. But the videos are free. The videos are free right now.
Suppose I was a part of the Southern Union. I went somewhere, but also I still want.
Stop. He cut his mic.
So I qualify.
Dr. Owusu, we wanted to, since it's Southeastern, what's your expectation? What's your call to action?
My call to action to my brothers and sisters in Southeastern Conference is for us to rally to this initiative. I think it's a God sent to us. After all, those individuals, those members who may not be attending right now, they are brothers and our sisters. They are brothers and our sisters, and we should care for them. We should care for their soul salvation. So I do expect that all through Southeastern Conference, that we rally to this call and be involved in this year of reconnecting. Let us be like the shepherd who went after the one sheep. Let us be like the woman who swept for the one coin. Let us be like the father who waited for the one son who left. Wow. And let us behave just like them, that when we find them, we come home rejoicing. The shepherd came with the sheep on his shoulder, rejoicing, called his neighbors, let us celebrate. The woman called her neighbors and said, my coin was lost. Come join me, let us celebrate. The father was waiting for the son to come and did not wait for the son to go home, but ran to meet that son, covered his dirt with the best robe that he can have. Killed a fatted calf for that son that was lost. Let us not be like the son who was at home, who was not happy that his lost brother came back home. We have an obligation to our brothers and sisters. And so Southeastern Conference, let us rally to that cause. November 20 has been set as Welcome Home Sabbath. Let us have some celebration when God's children come back home.
Yes, sir.
Wow. That's my president, y'all. That's Southeastern.
We partying now.
Wow. Yes, sir.
November 20th. We're going to mark that on our calendars.
All right. Well, listen, we want to thank our audience for joining us today for this special edition of the Pastors Roundtable, the Southeastern Conference Camp Meeting Edition. We are grateful for each of our guests today. For our host and our guests. Dr. Owusu is not just a guest, he's actually our host as well today, and we are excited about that. And we hope that you've learned something. We hope that you'll go and track down the resources that have been we've talked about today. Remember, Advent Source, if you're outside of the Southern Union. You can get in contact with your conference ministerial director if you're just in the Southern Union, or I guess the president's office as well, to be able to get a hold of these resources that we want to make available as we begin embracing this call to reconnect.
And we will put it also on our show notes for this show, so you'll also have that opportunity at thepastorsroundtable.com.
All right, Roger.
Well, wow. We are just so excited again for this opportunity. We are looking forward to next week. As you heard, we're at camp meeting, virtual camp meeting.
Oh, wow.
And so next week,
right.
we're going to have a discussion on camp meetings.
That's
right. We're going to go right back and talk about if you have been nostalgic for camp meeting, if you have missed connecting at camp meeting this year.
If you hate camp meeting.
Is camp meeting relevant now? The 10 days? We're going to talk about that next week.
Yes,
so
indeed.
you want to be with us next week as we deal with that subject.
Yes.
So we just want to say thank you for being a part of camp meeting this year at Southeastern Conference.
We're in Florida.
We're in Florida. Southeastern Florida Conference. We're just so excited to be here. So we're at the Pastors Roundtable. We strive to make ministry relevant,
resourced,
and real. God bless.